Someone screaming at you? Here's how to make them stop mid-sentence and question their entire approach. Welcome to Mind Vault, where we unlock the psychology behind power dynamics and human behavior. Today, we're revealing the specific psychological techniques that will help you disarm anyone trying to intimidate you, turning their aggression into awkward confusion while you maintain complete control of the situation. Intimidation is essentially psychological theater designed to trigger your fight or flight response and make you comply through fear. But here's the thing about bullies and intimidators. Their entire strategy depends on you playing the role of the victim in their power play. When you refuse to audition for that part, their whole performance falls apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. The psychology of intimidation reveals something fascinating. People who rely on intimidation tactics are usually operating from a place of deep insecurity and lack of actual power. Think about it. Truly confident, powerful people don't need to intimidate others because they have legitimate authority, competence, or influence. Intimidation is what people use when they don't have real power but desperately want to feel like they do. It's like psychological cosplay for insecurity. Understanding this immediately gives you an advantage because you realize that the person trying to intimidate you is actually revealing their weakness, not demonstrating their strength. They're essentially having an emotional tantrum and hoping you'll mistake it for authority. Once you see intimidation for what it really is, a desperate performance by someone who feels powerless, it becomes much easier to respond appropriately. Let's break down the anatomy of intimidation tactics so you can recognize them in the wild. The volume violator believes that speaking louder automatically makes them more right. They use voice projection like a weapon, thinking that if they can make you physically uncomfortable with their noise level, you'll surrender to their will. It's basically the adult version of a toddler screaming until they get their way. The Space Invader uses physical proximity as a power move, standing too close, looming over you, or positioning themselves in ways that make you feel cornered or trapped. They're essentially trying to use your natural discomfort with boundary violations to make you comply. It's like they took a seminar on how to make people uncomfortable 101 and decided to major in it. The eye contact terrorist maintains aggressive, unblinking stare downs designed to make you look away first. They've somehow convinced themselves that winning a staring contest equals winning the argument. It's the psychological equivalent of a nature documentary where two animals are trying to establish dominance, except one of them is wearing a business suit. The rapid-fire questioner bombards you with aggressive questions without giving you time to answer, creating a sense of being under attack and making you feel defensive. They're not seeking information. They're trying to overwhelm your cognitive processing, so you'll just agree to make it stop. It's like waterboarding, but with words. The silent treatment terrorist uses uncomfortable silences as weapons, staring at you expectantly after making statements or accusations, using your discomfort with silence to pressure you into filling the void with compliance or apologies. They've weaponized awkwardness and turned it into a control strategy. Now that we understand their playbook, let's talk about how to completely disarm these tactics. The first and most powerful technique is what I call the curious observer. Instead of reacting emotionally to their intimidation attempts, you respond with genuine curiosity about their behavior. When someone starts yelling, you might say, "That's interesting. You seem really passionate about this topic. What specifically has you so energized?" This technique is psychologically devastating to intimidators because it reframes their aggression as an interesting behavioral phenomenon rather than an effective power move. You're essentially treating them like a fascinating specimen in a psychology lab, which immediately deflates their sense of control over the situation. The second technique is the compassionate translator. This involves acknowledging what they might be feeling underneath their intimidation behavior. "It sounds like this situation is really stressing you out," or "I can see this is really important to you." This approach disarms them by showing that you're not intimidated. You're actually concerned about their emotional well-being. The beauty of the compassionate translator is that it forces them to either admit they're upset, which breaks their tough guy image, or deny it, which makes them look ridiculous for acting so aggressively about something that supposedly doesn't bother them. Either way, they lose the intimidation game. The third technique is the reality anchor. This involves calmly stating obvious facts about the situation without getting emotional. You're raising your voice right now. You're standing very close to me, or you seem upset about something. By simply narrating what's happening without judgment, you force them to become conscious of their behavior, which usually makes them self-conscious about how they're coming across. The fourth technique is the polite boundary. This involves setting limits on their behavior in the most courteous way possible. I want to understand your concerns, but I'm having trouble focusing when voices are raised. Could we try this conversation again with normal volume? Or, I'm not comfortable with this level of proximity. Could you give me some space so I can concentrate on what you're saying? The politeness is crucial because it makes it impossible for them to frame you as the aggressor. You're not fighting fire with fire. You're fighting fire with ice water. It's hard to maintain an intimidating stance when someone is being unreasonably reasonable with you. The fifth technique is the perspective shift. This involves gently redirecting the conversation to the bigger picture or long-term consequences. How do you think this approach is going to affect our working relationship going forward? Or what outcome are you hoping for from this conversation? This forces them to think strategically rather than just emotionally, which usually deflates their aggressive energy. One of the most effective advanced techniques is what I call the emotional Aikido. Just like in martial arts Aikido, you redirect their aggressive energy instead of meeting it head-on. When someone is trying to intimidate you, you acknowledge their energy but redirect it toward problem solving. I can see you have strong feelings about this. What would you like to see happen differently? This technique is particularly powerful because it validates their emotions, which they weren't expecting, while channeling that energy into constructive rather than destructive directions. It's like taking their intimidation energy and using it to power a solution-finding machine. The psychology behind why these techniques work is fascinating. Intimidation relies on triggering your primitive brain responses, fear, anger, or submission. But when you respond from your rational, thoughtful brain instead, it creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance in the intimidator. Their strategy isn't working the way it's supposed to, which confuses and deflates them. There's also something called emotional contagion at play. When someone is aggressive, they expect you to mirror that energy level. But when you respond with calm curiosity or compassion, it often causes them to unconsciously start matching your energy instead. You're essentially hijacking their emotional state and pulling them toward reasonableness. Let's talk about specific scenarios and how to handle them. If someone is yelling at you, resist the urge to yell back or shrink away. Instead, lower your voice and speak more slowly than usual. Say something like, I want to make sure I understand everything you're telling me, so I'm going to need you to slow down a bit. This forces them to either continue yelling, which now looks ridiculous, or match your calm energy. If someone is invading your personal space, don't back away aggressively or push back. Instead, take a small step back and say something like, I think better when I have a little breathing room. Mind if we continue this over here? Then move to a different location that gives you more space. You're controlling the geography of the interaction without making it a confrontation. If someone is trying to intimidate you with aggressive eye contact, don't get into a staring contest. Instead, occasionally look away thoughtfully as if you're considering their words, then make normal eye contact when you respond. This shows you're not intimidated, but also that you're not playing their dominance games. For the rapid-fire questioner, try this. Those are all great questions. Let me think about which one is most important to address first. Then pause, consider, and answer one question thoroughly. This breaks their rhythm and forces them to slow down to your pace. The most important thing to remember is that intimidation only works if you consent to be intimidated. The moment you refuse to play the victim role in their psychological theater, their entire performance becomes pointless. You're not trying to intimidate them back. You're simply declining to be intimidated by them. Body language is crucial when disarming intimidators. Keep your posture open but relaxed. Maintain normal breathing, and avoid defensive gestures like crossing your arms or backing away. Your physical presence should communicate calm confidence, not defiance or submission. Think interested observer rather than frightened victim or angry opponent. It's also important to understand when disarmament techniques aren't appropriate. If someone is making genuine threats of violence, or if you feel physically unsafe, these psychological techniques are not substitutes for removing yourself from the situation or seeking help. The techniques we're discussing are for psychological intimidation, not physical danger. One of the most satisfying aspects of mastering these techniques is watching intimidators realize their tactics aren't working. They usually go through a predictable sequence: confusion, escalation, frustration, and finally either retreat or genuine engagement. It's like watching someone try to use a remote control that's run out of batteries. They keep pressing harder on the buttons, but nothing happens. The long-term benefits of learning to disarm intimidation extend far beyond just handling difficult people. When you know you can't be psychologically intimidated, you become more confident in all your interactions. You're more likely to speak up when something bothers you, more willing to pursue opportunities that might involve conflict, and less likely to accept unfair treatment. Practice these techniques in low-stakes situations first. The next time a pushy salesperson tries to pressure you, or a customer service representative gets aggressive, or someone tries to cut in line, use these as opportunities to practice your disarmament skills. The more you practice, the more natural these responses become. Remember, the goal isn't to humiliate or defeat the intimidator. It's to neutralize their tactics while maintaining your dignity and possibly even helping them realize that intimidation isn't an effective communication strategy. Some of the most successful uses of these techniques result in improved relationships because the other person learns to interact with you more respectfully. The psychological principle at work here is that bullies and intimidators are looking for easy targets. When you demonstrate that you can't be easily intimidated, they usually move on to someone else, or better yet, they learn to interact with you in more appropriate ways. You're essentially training them to treat you better by not rewarding their bad behavior. Finally, understand that becoming skilled at disarming intimidation is like developing any other skill. It takes practice, and you'll get better over time. Don't expect to perfectly execute these techniques in your first high-stress situation. Be patient with yourself as you learn to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. The ultimate irony of intimidation is that people use it because they feel powerless, but it actually makes them less powerful by revealing their insecurity and lack of legitimate authority. When you respond to intimidation with calm curiosity and compassion, you're demonstrating real power. The power of someone who doesn't need to control others through fear because they're secure in themselves. Your ability to remain calm and thoughtful in the face of someone else's emotional chaos is one of the most valuable life skills you can develop. It serves you in personal relationships, professional situations, and anywhere else someone might try to use psychological pressure to get what they want from you. If you found these psychological techniques as fascinating as we did creating this content, smash that like button, subscribe for more insights into human behavior, and forward this to someone who might enjoy these mind tricks as much as you did. Until next time, remember, the best defense against intimidation isn't intimidation back. It's refusing to play the game entirely.